So I just want to welcome on stage Jacqueline Springer and KRS-One.
Okay, so welcome back to Birmingham.
Yes.
How many times have you been here? How many times have you performed here?
Maybe 6.
Okay.
Like 6 over a 20-year period.
Okay, we've got some making up to do. Right?
Yeah, I guess I'll start tonight.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask some broad questions before you can engage with everybody who's taken the time to come out,
Sure.
and we thank you for doing so. What I want to start with is the fact that Criminal Minded will be 30 years old next year. 30 years old next year.
Wow.
And it sounds a little bit like I'm trying to romanticize the past. But I really want you to allow us a glimpse into that past when you knew that you and Scott La Rock were going into the studio, not to make a track, but to make an album. When you know you've got this entire road ahead of you, could you take us back to, a particular moment when everything kind of struck that this was happening, that this was a journey that you were actually on?
Wow, you're going to have to cut me off.
Okay.
This is, let me try to condense this down. Man, your first question is so, like, okay, well, here's how I can approach this. First of all, Scott La Rock, my DJ Scott La Rock.
DJ Scott La Rock.
Scott Sterling is his name. He was my social worker, okay? We were in a shelter. I was a homeless dude in the shelter. They called us clients. The clients were in the shelter, homeless, 700 of us, some out of prison, mental institutions, and runaways like me. I was about 19, say. I enter this shelter. I'm there with another guy named Just Ice, another recording artist. He wasn't that yet. He wasn't that then. It was just me and him in the shelter, dreaming about being recording artists. It's about 1985. Scott Sterling, the social worker, walks into the shelter one day, and everybody from the entire blue section, which was the section, it was 4 sections. We were in the blue section, about 100 some odd people in this one section. We all had to see the social worker. For whatever reasons, there's all type of reasons for you to stay in the shelter. You got to see the social worker. So we go see the social worker. So when it's time for me to go see the social worker, I've already seen 100 social workers. I tell them the same thing. They tell me the same thing, and I keep it moving. What's the same thing? Do you have a job? No. Are you in school? No. What are you going to do with your life? Well, I'm an MC. Oh, what is that? That's not a job. You're not going to make it doing that. What are you doing? Yeah. So I went through this over and over again. So by the time I get to Scott Sterling, I'm like, here's another social worker. He starts with the questions. Where do you work? I don't have a job. Where do you go to school? I'm not in school. What are you doing with yourself? I'm an MC, E-M-C-E-E. I said this to him, to Scott Sterling. And for the first time, after I was saying this for years, people, he says, spit your rhyme right now. Just like that.
Okay.
I'm in the social worker's office. We're in an office.
Did you?
Of course I did.
Do you remember what you spat?
Oh yes, it was.
Could you do it now?
I did a rhyme. It eventually became a record called Advance, but the rhyme went, every generation after every generation, the American nation is hit with starvation. The exploitation, the quick sensation can only lead the mind to destructive creations. Creations with the mind, destructions with the knife will only lead to this present way of life. And I can't remember the rest. That was the first part. And actually, when he said that was his reaction, and he stood up and was like, wow, what, no one rhymes like that. And look at the words I'm using. Every generation after every generation, the American nation is hit with starvation, the exploitation. These words were not in rap. Yeah. Rappers didn't sound like this. Yeah. So I didn't expect ever to make it. I just said, this is how I do it, and it's never going to be accepted or heard, but this is how I express myself. And on the streets, there was room for me.
Yes.
On the street level, I was a hero on the street level, in the projects. We used to get in the ciphers, circles, for those that aren't bilingual. We used to get rap lingual. We used to get in these ciphers, these circles, and rhyme to each other. And I was always the one, walking out of the cipher with money or favors or whatever it was because of my rhyme style. But it was nothing mainstream. It was no mainstream. This is 84, 85. This is LL Cool J. This is Run DMC. This is Houdini, the Fat Boys. This kind of group.
So now the only reason I'm doing this, I'm not being rude, and I can't believe she's doing that to KRS-One. He said to me, I will go on.
Please
give me a signal. So I'm interested in how you then migrate, how your relationship changes, because there's a power dynamic there.
Yes.
Scott's employed to help you.
Yes.
You're largely a mentee.
Yes.
How do you become peers? Music equalizes your relationship, and take us to the studio, any studio memory you have. Of Criminal Minded.
Once Scott heard my rhyme, he invited me. He revealed to me at that moment that he was a DJ. Okay. And he said, my name is DJ Scott LaRock. This is just my day job. And he said, I DJ every Friday and Saturday at this place called Broadway RT. Now, Broadway RT was on 145th Street in Manhattan. We are at 166th Street in the Bronx. This is about 10 miles apart. Okay. So he invited me there that weekend. I was speaking to him like on a Tuesday. And he said, this Friday, come down to Broadway RT and see what it is I do. Now, this was the first time I was ever in a club, first time. And so I walk in, and as I'm walking up the stairs, had these stairs, I'm walking up the stairs to the club to go into where the actual club was. I walk up, and coming down was Dougie Fresh and Slick Rick. And they were coming down the stairs as I was going up the stairs, and I was like, wow. And I'm watching them, and they was in all the regalia. Slick Rick was just crazy, okay? Gold, jewels, and they just walking down.
They wafted.
They floated down the stairs. And so I got them. So come back to your question. It started right there when I realized that my social worker was this DJ, this guy. And then, of course, you go into the room, and the cuts, he's cutting and scratching, thousands of people up there jamming, and you look to see who's causing all of this. Yeah. It's the social worker. Yeah. And you look, you say, wow, that's the social worker. So that blew my mind. Next day, or actually that Monday, comes into work, we sit down again. Yo, how did you like it? Oh, that was great, yo. So he says, this weekend, I get paid. Get paid every 2 weeks. He got paid every 2 weeks. He said, let's go in the studio and record something this weekend. So I was like, wow. This was like, imagine I'm homeless with nothing. We are in the shelter. We're at the lowest level of American society. We are at that level, okay? And I always thought that I had to go somewhere to be a star or to fulfill my dreams, or I thought I had to go somewhere. But I realized that often when you're still, your dreams come to you. And it was my first lesson in life, at least this professional life, that all along I thought I had to go somewhere. I thought I had to be something else. I thought I had to change my style. I thought all this stuff. And then in the shelter itself, I meet the social worker who becomes my DJ, who we formed the group Boogie Down Productions because we were from the Boogie Down Bronx. Yeah. So he says it's a Boogie Down production. And so he took us in the studio that weekend. I recorded this record called Elementary, which wound up on Criminal Minded, the album. But I recorded Elementary, and And that's where it begins. My earliest recollection of the studio was not even that. My earliest recollection, we was already in the studio, but the most memorable moment is when we recorded South Bronx. And because that was a month that Scott was broke. His bills were due, his money was stretched, he didn't have enough money to do what he had to do for his family. And he took his last check and went in the studio. And I was just looking at her like, I was like, you really want to be like us? Like homeless? Like you really want to come? And, we used to tease him and say, yo, we got a bed for you over here, like right here. Because he would take his check and run to the studio and say, I'll figure it out. We'll figure out these bills. We'll figure it out later on. He's pushing things off and pushing things off. And he took us in the studio, took me in the studio. And I recorded the record South Bronx. And the record was, it cost $50. We had 2 hours to record. He had $50 to record. And what was great about this studio is that after you record, you get what is called an acid tape. Yeah. Like a record, one copy of your record. So that's why we went there. Went there was one take. Scott put the beat down. The beat went down. My voice went down. Many people tell me this style. One take, the chorus went down. South Bronx, one take. Everything was one take. We had no time for nothing else. We couldn't afford mistakes. Nothing.
The urgency.
We just went in and did it. Record was finished. We finished the record that Friday. He got his check. We went in the studio. That night, okay, the guy made the plate. Mm-hmm. That night, we went to the Latin Quarters, a huge club in Manhattan. Everything hip hop was at this club. We went down there, and there was a DJ named Raul who used to spin there, and we gave him our acid tape, and he played the record, and that was the end of it. The whole Latin Quarters just went crazy. And he played the record 6 times in a row.
That's a fantastic story.
And this is and of course Scott LaRock is there. Now imagine while this is going on, while this is going on, in my mind, I'm with my social worker.
Oh, you still hadn't pushed through that yet?
No, I was still homeless.
Yeah.
After we performed shows, I would go back to the shelter. I didn't have a house. I didn't have an apartment. I didn't have anything. I remember doing Union Square one night, another club, 14th Street in Manhattan, Lower East, the start of what is called the Village, okay. 14th Street. I did a whole show there, rocked it, did a whole thing, South Bronx, Bridge is over. I stayed on the train that night, and I was so embarrassed because it was a weird. I'll tell you this thing cut me off too. Here it is. I'm on the train one day, right? Not even one day. This day, I just did Union Square. I get on the train. Now I got about $400 in my pocket. Me and Scott, we must have got $1,000 for the night. We used to pay D Nice and another member of the group, cab fare, all this type of stuff. By the time I got to myself, I had about $400 on me. Now I could have went to a hotel. I could have done it, but the hotels even then in the 80s, they wanted credit cards. I had none. You could not get shelter even if you had money. You had to have a certain amount of money to get shelter, to get out of the street. I didn't have that amount, but I had hundreds of dollars on me. So I'm sitting on the train, right? After I rocked the performance, so I'm like, do these people recognize me? Like, do they recognize, so I'm sitting on the train, I'm in the back of the train, the last car, and in the last seat of the last car. And these guys turn on the radio. Bridge is over. Boom, boom, bah, bah, boom, bah, boom, boom. So they like, yo, this dude right here. Yo, this dude. Yo, this shit. Now I'm sitting here like this. I hope they don't recognize me. I'm like, yo. So I'm sitting in the back like this. So they got the boom box out. This is like, they blasting the bridges over and they doing their thing. So we ride about 3 stops. They never see me. They never recognize me. The record was too new. There were no videos.
Yeah.
There was no such thing as that. That was not there yet.
Yeah.
And MTV wasn't playing black people, so that was the end of that.
Yeah.
So we was just there. And I say that to you to say that it was a weird situation in my early days. I look back on it now and I say, wow, that was a weird situation. But when I was in it, it was normal. It was like my regular life, and the only weird thing about it was that this dude was my social worker. That was the only thing that it stayed with me, because I used to see him work every day, 9 to 5.
In where you stay?
Where I stayed, in the shelter. He had to break up fights, and people died in the shelter. He had to go call the cops, the car. I mean, like everything a social worker got to do. And I'm watching him, and I'm saying, but this dude is hip hop to the core.
Yeah.
This dude right here. And he's making beats, and he's a social worker. And he found some dude in the shelter that had some skills named KRS-One. And he said, well, come on, I'll spend my check on you, and hopefully I could even get myself out of the situation that I'm in. And so we formed the Boogie Down Productions. And of course, I'll stop here, but we took our first demo to a guy named Mr. Magic. Rest in peace, he's gone now. But we took our demo to Mr. Magic, and he dissed us and said, that was garbage. Elementary is garbage. I did this other record called Criminal Minded, the actual song. He said, that's garbage. None of it worked, all of it. And so at the time, Battles was big, bigger than it is today, as big as Battles are today. In the 80s, it was way bigger. Careers actually started.
Yes.
When you won a battle. Careers ended when you lost one.
Yes.
And so nobody was quick to battle. Nobody was quick to say, I'm the best. Nobody was quick to say, I'm the greatest. Those words didn't come out of nobody's mouth.
But you're more inclined to do that because you have nothing to lose, because you're where you are.
Oh, yes, I was crazy. I was absolutely insane, because exactly where I was. I'm coming out of the shelter. Like, people didn't understand that some days when I was on stage, I didn't eat that day. And we had to perform to get money. And after we perform, we get our money and go get something to eat. Mm-hmm. But we had nothing. We had nothing and didn't eat nor drink nothing. And so 11 o'clock at night, imagine you go the whole day, and you're like, yo, at 11 o'clock, though, I'm going to have $500. And so I'll be good. But you're starving the whole day.
That's the hunger.
That's the hunger. And so now some dude gets on stage who ate all day, comes from a nice house, knows his mother and his father, has friends that he could trust, and you want to battle this savage. That's what happened to all MC Shan, Melly Mel. I mean, they had no idea what they were up against. They had no idea. I was really in a desperate situation, but it shows that struggle sharpens human beings. We don't like to hear it because it's struggle. You know, who wants to go through a struggle? We
just want you to fast forward to the happy ending. That's really, we want the Disney moment. I want to just dwell very briefly on your home life before you left. I'm really interested in the music that was around you, because generationally, hip hop is your way out, quite literally, from the prescribed identity that you were going to have. But I want to know, what are the most profound memories that you retain of music in the home, and who influenced you in a particular stylistic way? Because what's really important about your popularity in this country was that when your albums dropped, when BDP's albums dropped, you were delivered in patois. you were doing all the rat-a-tat, all of those sorts of things. So many things that infiltrate the lexicon of Black British, identity. So could you tell us about that, about the music that was in
Which
the
I
home?
did not know until about 1989, pertaining to Britain.
Yeah.
Again, I was rhyming from my block, my street, which was very small. It was one block, 139th Street and Millbrook Avenue. That's who I was rhyming for. There's a place called Millbrook Projects. And there were Jamaicans, Haitians, Cubans. I mean, the whole Latino community was there. You could not help but walk down the street and, hear a Jamaican talking or hear a Puerto Rican speaking his tongue or her tongue. You grew up around multi-cultures. You could not function in New York unless you knew something of Jamaicans, something of Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, Cubans, Southern blacks.
No one ever mentions Bajans. This really grieves me. No one ever mentions Barbados here.
And you want to hear something even evil?
Go ahead.
I'm Bajan.
See now. Now you see.
You see?
There's a little bit of judgment in the family there. It's almost like, why is he sounding Jamaican? Why doesn't he sound like he's from Christchurch or from St. Philip?
Because, again, I was born in Brooklyn, by the way. And I was born in Brooklyn when Jamaican immigrants were coming into Jamaica, coming into Brooklyn heavily. And so go back now to the first part of your question, because the last part kind of was interesting when you said, because of course in Britain, I mean, you guys are just dance hall, like this is like dance hall capital, okay? But in Brooklyn, it was new, it was fresh. American blacks were not listening to reggae. It was not on our radar at all. Earth, Wind and Fire, Isley Brothers, Diana Ross, and not the Supremes. That was the 60s. Diana Ross had her own thing through the 70s and 80s. Michael Jackson, obviously.
Prince. Prince.
No, Prince wasn't there yet. Prince wouldn't come till later. We're talking we're talking like, when you say influence on me, 75, 76.
Yeah. So he comes around in 79,
yeah. 70, I think, right?
Yeah.
Prince is 79. Purple Rain?
No, 79 is I Want to Be Your Lover.
I Want to Be.
Yeah, I know.
That record was hot. I want to be your lover. Crazy. But this was the music that we were listening to. 1975, Bob Marley comes to New York. He was an opening act for Stevie Wonder. He played in Madison Square Garden. I couldn't go, I was too young, and we couldn't afford it. But the next day, everybody in Brooklyn was Rastafari. Everybody in Brooklyn. The next day, Bob Marley did such damage to New York City. He converted the whole place. He converted everything. People went in with Steve. First of all, look at Stevie Wonder. This is an icon. Like, first of all, we're dealing with Stevie Wonder, okay? Yeah. This guy is beyond, okay? When Bob Marley got done with Stevie put out a song called Master Blaster.
Yeah. The beats.
The beats and everything because of Bob Marley. Bob Marley did that song, We're Jamming, hope you like jamming. So that was like, oh, I hope you like jamming. People were just like everywhere. And Stevie Wonder was inspired by that and did his song, Master Blaster, off Bob Marley. And this is the impact that we were having. I was 10, 1975, I was 10, running around Brooklyn. And when Bob Marley came, reggae was accepted in New York from that moment on. he would come back later with this album called Rastaman Vibration. Rastaman Vibration, yeah, positive. This right.
Was that the second wave of?
This is the
Jamaican
second wave of
Jamaican indoctrination. Yeah.
And along with Bob came people like Yellow Man, people like Michigan and Smiley with the most dangerous diseases. We talking about the elephantitis. This was Brooklyn. This was Brooklyn. This is it. Nothing else was being played after Bob Marley came that day. And so my mother, go back to your question again, she was the beginning of the influence. My mother is a brilliant, brilliant woman. Crazy, insane. We don't even get along, me and my mother. I think she's out of her mind. But this woman is the goddess in my life. She is the one, give you a little background on her. Her name is Jacqueline.
Stop. Wait. Okay, good.
Yeah, let's take that in. Jacqueline Parker is her name. She had two boys, me and my brother Kenny. And she had us in the 60s. Okay. And in the 60s, an unwed mother was not the thing to be. You were ostracized in society. Nothing like today in that sense. But back then, women even felt a bit of anxiety having children without a father or a man or really a husband that they can claim was the father of their children. This was a big deal in the 60s. My mother was one of these women that was way ahead of her time and was like, no, I can raise my boys on my own. These men are a waste of time. She used to tell us all the time, like, these dudes are a waste, and it's funny because she's talking to two young black men. And she used to say, but you're not going to grow up. And she used to say, you're not going to be sniffling, whining black men. Sniffling, whining. I don't know what is sniffling? Like,
Well, that's
right, but that
your weak willed.
Right. I looked that word up, sniffling, and it doesn't exist. But
it existed in the Parker home.
But it existed in many mothers' mouths of that day. But she told us specifically that's not what she wanted for us. And she took us to Black Panther meetings. She kept Malcolm X blazing through the house, pictures of Dr. King on the wall, Marcus Garvey every day. We was hearing something from him. That's all I remember from the time I was born. I've never been outside of authentic black culture, ever, in my life. Even when I didn't want that, because when you're young, you're like, well, I gotta hear about Marcus again. Well, I gotta hear about, you want to go outside and play, do your thing. But my mother was on us. She was on us and was like saying, nah, this is what it is. And when we would make mistakes, it was funny, what we called mistakes, she would praise us for. And what we thought we were doing right, we get smacked in our head for.
Could you give us an example?
There was a time, my mother used to say to us, the intelligent man never needs to fight. She said, you win with your words. This is what my mother used to always say, win with your words. Learn how to speak. People who can't speak are quick to use their hands. Learn how to speak. So we're 10, 11 years old, got to read the dictionary every day. We got words on the wall, all of this. So one day this dude, a bully in the neighborhood, bullies everybody, bullied us, took our money, bus passes, lunch passes. One day, we're all playing outside, shooting hoops and so on. The bully comes. His name was Nuki, the dude named Nuki. He comes through. Give me the ball. I'm playing now. So he takes the ball from some person we was playing with and starts shooting. So I'm like, yo, we're in the middle of the game. Like, yo, what is going on here? Oh, you want some of this? You want some of this? So I'm like, yo, this is crazy right now. Listen, we're in the middle of a game. So he comes over to me like, yo, Like he's like being aggressive. So I put dude on the floor, straight up, joked him up, bam, body slammed him right on the ground.
How old were you?
I was like 12.
Okay.
I was like, but I was already 6 feet at 12. That's another story.
That's Bayesian stock, isn't it?
That's something else. I was already 6 feet at 12.
Wow.
I was already there. And this dude, obviously, I was taller, bigger than him and so on. So I just dealt with him. And he's on the ground. So everybody's looking at me going, yo, you just beat down Nuki. So I'm like, yo, you gonna chill or what? So I had him pinned down on the ground. So I'm like, yo, if I let you, are you gonna chill? Come on. So he gets up, dude start crying, runs off. My mother, Larry, that's my name, Lawrence. Mm-hmm. Larry, get up here now. I go upstairs. Didn't I tell you never
to
use your hands in a dispute like this? I'm like, boy, this dude was bugging. What are we supposed to do? You supposed to speak to him. Then she went deeper into, and he was a black man. 5 hours.
The 5 hours hurt worse than the hand.
5 hours in the kitchen, hearing how black people are not supposed to fight. I'm like, this, oh God. I walk outside, yeah, you got, yo, I saw when you did it, yo, and you know how to block it, then it starts to become a legend, a rumor.
You're on the hierarchy.
I jumped off the building now, down on Tanuki now. Now it just went haywire. So I'm living in this double world. Like, the street world is one thing, but my mom's is somebody else.
But can I just say, looking back, or from the outside, all of this infiltrates your music.
Oh, yes.
And it brings us nicely into iconography. Everyone talks today often about being a brand, building a brand identity. But I'm really interested in, retrospectively, what you think about the 2 BDP album covers, the primary ones, for Criminal Minded and By Any Means Necessary. Because over time, how we actually look and assess Malcolm X depends so much on your access to him, the full knowledge, where you're getting the sources from. Because that picture of him with the rifle was in Ebony magazine.
Right.
If people think about Malcolm X in that picture, they would never associate it with a mainstream, broadly middle class black publication. How you reconfigured that generationally, how you changed the weaponry, the use of weaponry in the hands of both you and Scott LaRock on Criminal Minded. Were there any concerns at the time that what you were seeking to project would be misconstrued? Or is there a case of, you've got to catch up to me? I cannot think about whether or not you understand what I'm visually representing here.
Well, it was both. To be totally honest, it was both, and it was a third piece too. Straight Rebellion is that piece too. I'll get back to that in a minute. Come over to no, we were deliberate in what we were doing. We knew exactly what would happen, or even the criticism that the album received. Talk first about Criminal Minded. When the album first came out, stores would not carry it. Criminal Minded, when it first came out, never charted, it was never in any major stores, it was none of that. I used to sell the album myself as a cassette to make money, to eat. I was still homeless, even when Criminal Minded came out. And so we used to sell this album through UPS, United Parcel Post in the United States. And they had a thing called cash on delivery, COD. So you could send someone a box of albums and UPS would deliver the check back to you. So I don't know if they do this anymore, but they used to. And so we used to get boxes of checks They were coming from various places
Nice.
around. Well, it wasn't nice because I didn't get any of it.
Yes, Bieber Records got it.
The people who owned the distribution took everything. Everything. They took it all. Let me not talk about that yet. I can get back to that. I'm trying to remember your question.
Yeah, it's about the interpretation, because often in the digital age, we're so used to the blowback that can actually impact upon the decisions, the creative
That's right.
decisions that are made by
Right.
trying to second guess how people are going to respond.
Right.
But you said something really interesting about the use of, or the pictorial representation of guns on Criminal Minded. You said that it represents somebody who thinks violently but acts righteously.
Oh, yes.
Do you believe, looking back, that people got that?
No.
Does that bother you?
No.
Okay.
No. The business that I'm in, and they use the word business, I should say the life that I'm in, but let me use the word business. Let me use the word the profession that I'm in. I'm first a philosopher by trade. That's my real love, is the study of reality. That's my real love. That's what I do most of the time in my day. MCing, believe it or not, is a very small part of my life. Could you imagine? Even my tours and stuff, it's probably 10% of my real life.
Well, you've been here 6 times, so I do believe it.
7 now.
Yeah.
It's a small part. I say that because in this profession, you have to have extreme patience. You have to love people. You have to be a brother to the world. I should say to the earth. You have to be a brother to the earth, to humanity. If you're a woman, a sister, maybe even a mother, to humanity. That's the position I'm in. Once you drink from that cup, you have to know that. I'm going to teach my people, period. That's what I'm here to do. My name is Knowledge Reigns Supreme. That's it. That's my name, okay? Knowledge Reigning Supreme. Anybody stepping before me is going to be educated. You're going to be inspired. You're going to think more of yourself. You're going to be empowered. That's my purpose on earth. That's me. Now, I do it through rap. I do it through graffiti writing. I do it through DJing. I write books. I do lectures. But if you ask me personally, now go back to the question of, there's the gun on the cover of the album. When we did Criminal Minded, we thought we were Black Panthers, if you really want to know. We were modifying Black Panther image, the Black Panther image that we saw in the hood. Because remember, we didn't see Black Panthers in photos. We saw them on the corner. Yeah. Like when I was growing up, you could see dudes on the corner. Like right there, they'd be like, "Why you ain't in school?" I'm like, "Well, they was always reprimanding you. They was always telling you something." This was the hood. This is what the hood really was. And so for me, it was like, this is real. Like, yo, we're the next ones up. Let's go. This is what it is. So it's like Criminal Minded. We can think like this, but we're not that. We're going to do this through poetry. There was also a movement then also that said that we're no longer going to fight each other physically, that now we're going to put all physical aggression into music. That was a conscious decision of the hood. Like, that was a conscious decision that was made. Actually, it was made through Zulu Nation, actually. Conscious decision made. That we're not going to fight anymore like this. We're going to fight through music and breaking and DJing and MCing. Yeah. We're going to compete like this. That was a conscious decision. And so I was part of that hood decision. And we said, you know what? Yeah, let's come out as raw as we possibly can. And not just in terms of the album cover, which we knew. We were posing on the cover with guns. First of all, it's the first album.
Yes.
To do that, Okay, this might have been one or two others in the rock world, but that's pretty much the first one.
You've got two black men, and black men are already presupposed to be criminal.
That's right.
You've got two black men who are armed.
Yes.
That adds another stereotypical layer of threat, even though you have the right to bear arms.
Yes.
So the double negative, it morphs.
But it's the double negative in the white society.
Exactly. And that adds to why you're not stocked in the shops.
Well, we could care less. As far as they take what you just said, you're so right. Two black men. This is 85, too. You talk about getting shot by the cops. This was every hour in 85. No cameras nowhere, okay? This was every day. Here we come with the gat out. Boom, this is what it is. But check this out. For us, we was Nat Turner. For us, we was Harriet Tubman. For us, we was Malcolm X. That's why I followed up with By All Means Necessary.
Yeah.
Because people didn't understand criminal-minded. They didn't get it. And me being young at the time, I didn't really care if they get it. I mean, I still don't, but I understand the importance of people understanding.
Yes.
I do understand that. But at 20, I could care less whether you understand or not. Basically, I'm the greatest MC, Shan's whack, this is criminal, you know, like that's all I'm thinking about, okay? And that's it. So we put the album forward and we knew. Now let me even take you even further into this knowing things, okay? I'm a metaphysician by trade. My branch of philosophy is metaphysics, okay? The study of reality, the study of first causes, okay? So we named the album Criminal Minded. Actually, Scott named the album Criminal Minded. And I knew right then and there the power of the word. The Greeks call it the power of the logos, the word. The things you say come back to you. You speak your reality into existence. Okay? Now I knew that. And we still put out Criminal Minded. Yeah. Just to show you how the spiritual life works as well. You could know Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad all day. Are you walking the path is the question. I had profound spiritual knowledge at 20. I had read everything by 20. Been to every mosque, every synagogue, every temple, every church. I've been there, been in it, sat down. But when it came time for me to survive, none of that mattered. Let's go with Criminal Minded, guns on the cover. Criminal Minded, you listen to my 9mm, let's go. Scott gets killed. A woman named Kaidi Chung, a famous journalist, Asian woman, she used to come on every day in the news. She interviewed me when Scott was killed in '87. She said, you don't think that your album, Guns on the Cover of the album, Criminal Mind, you think that had anything to do with the murder of your friend?
That's the philosophy of live by the sword, die by the sword.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
I think they also applied that to Paul Walker's death. He died in a car, it was driving fast. I mean, it's very reductive, it's very simplistic, and it's like Trayvon Martin, it's blaming you for contributing to your own death.
But wait, I'm a metaphysician. We live by those laws. You're right. So-and-so shouldn't have been there that day. Trayvon he should have just complied. Rodney King shouldn't have been drunk. Yeah. You're right. You're totally right in that sense. In the sense of how you're saying it.
No, I'm saying they are saying it.
No, in the sense of how you're saying it. It's always the excuse. Yeah. It's always you're doing it to yourself.
Yeah.
But you are. The mind creates its own reality. This is what we cannot escape. Whatever you choose to think will be your life. And we don't take that seriously enough. We really don't. And again, it's a weird thing to say because this is an issue of character. If a young child believes in Santa Claus, why is you as the adult going to take away that joy? You're an adult. You know Santa Claus ain't real, especially the white one. You know that ain't real. That's Coca-Cola. Come on. But your young kid, your young black kid, wants to see an old, heavy-set white dude with a white beard. Your black kid says, this is my dude right here. I'm waiting for Christmas, Ma. You're not going to let Christmas go by. And I don't want a black Santa Claus. I want the one that I see every day. You, mother, you know what the deal is. But your children's happiness as well as maturity is at stake. Do you give them the truth right then and there on December 24th? Or do you go, and go through the whole thing? This is the hard job of the philosopher. As I sit with you right now, there are so many things that I would like to say to the public that they are not ready for. You don't want to hear it. It's too crazy. Like, okay, just an example, and don't stretch this out. It's not the question. Slavery never existed. You see, I'm just going to throw something at you. Okay? Slavery never existed. No black people were slaves.
Why not?
Because if slavery existed then, it still exists now. We call it employment today. We call it employment. We call the master the boss now. But nothing about the society in which we lived has changed except technology.
Also, an element of participation and free will. There's a big difference between being able to leave your place of employment and being under threat of death.
You still are. You can't leave your place of employment or you'll die.
Financially, over
Same
time.
thing. The same. That's the new God now. We can't do anything without money. So leave your job, you die. It's slavery still.
I want you to hold that enormous thought.
We wasn't even supposed to be there.
Well, I mean, you willed it into existence. You took us
My
there.
point is that as a philosopher, if you've read 1,000 books, your perception of reality is not everyone else's. And so you have to be humble enough and open-minded enough to deal with people on the level they are on. And so that's why I say, for me, everything I say is the truth. Like, the truth. I don't even like to speak about what I believe.
Do you see how that level of assurance,
Yes,
which propelled you out of the homeless shelter,
yes.
also came back against you in a commercial way, because it was like, oh, he's talking down to us.
Yes,
He's condescending.
yes,
He's not letting
yes.
us participate in his knowledge.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes. I totally get it. Yes. Yes. Look, go to the Bible. Jesus says, Yeshua says, he says, the way they prosecute you is the same way they prosecuted me. So, yeah, people who are forward thinkers, people who are always in 2100, even though you're in 2000s, those people, us people, yeah, we're always going to be seen as arrogant. We have to try to humble ourselves or make our image more approachable. We should try to do that.
Well, that's nice. When I say nice, I'm not I'm not going, well done, Chris. No, I'm not doing that. But it segues nicely into, or back to the question, because if that's the imagery that's chosen.
Yes.
If you're going to have that gun,
Yes.
completely different. You're not reenacting Malcolm X's pose.
Right.
You're updating it. It has a different context.
Yes.
You're wearing the clothing of your generation.
Yes.
Who you're looking out onto may be similar in terms of who the foe is, or maybe completely different. But it's still a black man at the window trying to protect himself.
That's right.
So the reason I was saying it was nice is because we were talking before we came on stage about your music. And I said to you that no matter what carnival you're at, Bristol, Birmingham, Notting Hill, wherever, every single time you're near a sound system, they will play Sound of the Police.
Whoop, whoop.
Right?
Let's go.
And the crowds explode. Everyone moshes, everyone jumps.
Yes.
And we're all dancing
Right.
in a carnival
Right.
that's deemed to celebrate crop over, the end of the harvest. Slaves are free,
No doubt.
just for this time.
Yes.
But it's a heavily policed
Oh, yes.
organization,
Right.
event now.
That's right.
So we're actually having joy at being free enough to actually have this, anti-establishment anthem. And over the last few years, with the transparency of the deaths of men and women of color, and we're going to talk about Black Lives Matter, obviously, one of the things that's quite key is that we can now see the deaths that are reported. The children, the loved ones of those who die, can see the deaths of people. They will live on in infinity on the internet.
Wow.
We can pull down famous actor and actresses' nude shots, but we can't remove seeing people, black people, being shot by people who are employed to serve. How do we, as consumers, put additional pressures of expectations on performers like yourself to entertain us, to have those ebullient moments where a shared pain is musically chronicled? How do we do that in a digital age where we're watching somebody get shot 6 times in the chest because they're selling CDs? Or we're watching a man shot in front of his 4-year-old, his girlfriend's 4-year-old, for reaching into his own person to get the identity that the policeman demanded. Do you think that our expectations of performers on how you chronicle the lives we're living, which has always been done from the blues on, that there are no more anthems like Sound of the Police, that there's no more ebullience in the horrors that we all have ready access to?
Well, there will always be anthems like Sound of the Police. The younger generation today, today's 20-year-old, let's say, today's 20-year-old is going to come up with another anthem. I can almost guarantee that because these songs are not written for commercial success. They're not written for that reason. They're written for your people, and your people, not just black people, people that are sick of that kind of conduct from the police, and that's really all people. It really goes across the board. Why do you only see black people being beaten, robbed, and shot on the TV? That's a different discussion that has to do with actually something you had brought up to me earlier about the idea that we never see white bodies in mass dead. We only see black bodies in mass dead.
And brown bodies around the Middle East.
The Middle East, whatever, the world, the globe. You can see black bodies hanging from trees. Even in history, they're quick to show black man, black woman, black man, black woman burnt to death. Well, the same thing happened to white people. In fact, more of it happened to white people in the United States. More white people were lynched in the United States than blacks. But the image that is put forward is that blacks are lynched more than whites. 12 Years a Slave, brilliant movie, great movie, along with Rosewood, Glory, Roots. But all of these movies go to 12 years a slave. In the movie, you have a black woman being whipped against a tree post, against a tree. And the whipping was so brutal, and it was showing this, okay, where this is film. This is American entertainment. Really global entertainment, but let's just keep it right there in the United States. This is what people want to see. In Hollywood, or when you're a director or a writer, no matter how controversial you want to be, you still have to be entertaining. So even if you pick up a controversial concept like slavery, like a black woman being beat against a tree because she wanted a bar of soap. So you say, okay, we feel this. All she wanted was a bar of soap. She's on the tree getting whipped. We are, well, let me even go deeper. African Americans sat there, watched the black woman get beat against the tree, and did absolutely nothing. Now, we would say, well, Chris, it's a movie. What are you going to do in a movie? Punch the white guy next to you? What are you going to do in a movie, okay? No, that's of course that's crazy, but here's the point. We have become so objective to our own existence.
Or to the objectification of black bodies.
No, we are objective to black bodies. We are
complicit.
trained to approach our oppression as if it's someone else. We actually watch Eric Gardner, let's say, I can't breathe. Or anyone else, Trayvon, anybody. We still are watching it. It's still entertaining. The only way it wouldn't be entertainment is if one of us or many of us went to, say, the precinct. So let's say we went to Rikers Island off New York City. Rikers Island there. So we all go to Rikers Island and we surround the prison. 10,000 black folk with guns. We go and surround the prison. And we're going to camp out, and they're going to bring the National Guard, and some of us may actually get shot, but we're going to stand here. The same way we march and picket in the street. Why don't we go march and picket in front of the jails and the prisons and say, as Africans, we are not going to participate in this system until our people are free. If we're not doing that, then now let's back up. Because everything then is entertainment. Everything is all entertainment. We can watch our mother get beat on the silver screen. We can even get an award for it. In fact, the young lady got an award for it. And for that scene, Denzel Washington, I thought was brilliant in Malcolm X. I thought he was Malcolm. I thought Denzel Washington was Malcolm X. That's not where he got his Academy Award.
Training Day.
Oh, where did he get? Training Day. Now, his performance in Training Day was hot as well. That was an excellent performance. But his Malcolm X performance not only meant more, as a story, it meant more. But also, here you have Denzel in two distinct roles that are opposite to one. Here you have Malcolm X, and this dude is playing, a corrupt cop, corrupting a rookie cop. Okay? Totally different from Malcolm. Malcolm doesn't even stand for that. The same actor plays two roles. The one that Hollywood gives him the Academy Award for is him as a thug and a criminal. Black people got to wake up and realize.
What would you say if someone was to counter that argument by stating that Steve McQueen, a black director,
Yes.
with his white collaborator partner, worked doggedly on bringing that story to bear, that we are often shown slavery, and the depiction of women in slavery is often always through the maternal eye. There was a rape scene in that film as well.
That's right.
You know, her character absolutely suffered. But we're seeing a narrative of suffering from the female perspective.
Yes.
Now there is again that body bag, that pile of black bodies seeing abuse.
That's right.
What would you not say that story needed to be told, and that it was told with a visual splendor and sensitivity? Do you see what I mean? As opposed to the default way of yore, which was somebody who just said, "Why don't we go and do that? Why don't we do?"
I would counter argue. I would say you could have made the same point by making a film about Nat Turner killing 55 white racists. You could have made the same point. As a matter of fact, the people who did the film, they researched the era that they were in. First of all, the film is off of a book.
Yes.
It's from a book written by the African that was drugged and then forced to work, employed. In that sense, they researched the era. They did research for their film. My argument is, if you research this time in this era, all through the film, we don't hear nothing about the Underground Railroad. All through this film, we don't hear nothing about white slavery.
It's a film, it's not a documentary.
No.
It's going to tell.
It
has to tell everything?
All storytelling is documentaries.
It's documentary. There's a factual element.
Yes.
There's a factual element.
Yes.
But it's somebody else reinterpreting somebody's autobiography.
That's right.
And in so doing, the narrative changes.
Yes. Then in your research, okay, I'll put it this way then. Take a look at Charleston Heston's 10 Commandments, Moses. Okay. Actually, Cecil B. DeMille's 10 Commandments. The whole film is a lie. From the time it starts to the time it ends, the whole film is a complete lie. But he told the story of Moses. And he told the story in such an elaborate way that this story is the story of Moses.
Yes.
Now, and no one reads the Bible now. No one goes to Exodus and actually read how the black Jews of that time escaped Egyptian slavery. The Bible is clear how they got out, who helped them, what happened.
This brings us back to your point about the profession you're in, the profession of Hollywood, and the advantages given and sustained and ingrained by the storytellers, which allows the film Egypt with Christian Bale to be rolled out with a primarily white
Complete
class.
lies. I don't know why we have to lie to tell a story. Why can't the research be accurate? Okay, 12 years a slave, I totally get what you're saying. See, there's another level of the black female story not being told. Black female suffering not being acknowledged as real suffering. That, I totally get that point. There's nothing to be said about that. That is what that is. And more films should come out. And like I said, 12 Years a Slave was a brilliant film. It was. But in our discussion here, that's white supremacy. At the end of the day, she didn't kill this dude at the end of the movie.
Or the wife who threw that.
Or the wife. I mean, I don't need to see her throat slit at the end of the movie for my 1250. You know what I'm saying? I need to see that.
But
because
the film's not being made for you. I know exactly what
well, see, this is what I'm saying. Yeah. Hollywood has rules that it always breaks when it comes to the narrative of black people. They always break their own rules. Like 12 Years a Slave, just not to harp on that movie, but as a historian myself, if you can imagine, first of all, the Irish alone, okay, not the Italians, the Greeks, and forget the Hungarians, English, forget the French, put that to the side. The Irish alone, okay, hundreds of thousands of Irish people were slaves in the United States.
You're talking about indentured slavery?
No, not indentured servitude. Slavery. Slaves. They were slaves, okay? With all rights divested, all humanity gone, can't move, can't talk, can't think. Slaves. Irish.
But there is also, we're going to sit and go, no, but that person suffered more. No, I don't want to have that. But what I want... I've been given the signal, and I'm quite keen that, that your audience speak to you.
Sure.
So I'm going to try and weave that into the final question. I asked you earlier if you'd heard of a man called Stephen Lawrence.
Right.
And we had a very interesting conversation because Stephen Lawrence's death had a totemic impact on this country, how it sees itself and how people believe they continue to see young men.
Right.
And also people of color in general and the suffering that they endure. The wavular effect of Stephen Lawrence's death is that it's changed legal operation in this country. Double jeopardy does not exist, where you can be tried more than once for the same crime.
Right.
It does not exist because after the Macpherson inquiry into the investigation of Stephen Lawrence's death of 1999, it stated that the British police force was institutionally racist. There's an organisation called Inquest. They're a charity that's run by 8 people who provide assistance for families of those bereaved on, quote, police contact.
Really?
And that police contact can include being tasered, road traffic accidents, as well as deaths, unexplained or contentious deaths in custody.
Oh, wow.
They have calculated that since 1990, 153 people described as black, Asian, or other minorities have died in police custody in this country. And of that 153, none have actually delivered a prosecution.
Wow. The
weekend just gone, around the country, Black Lives Matter marches took place. Some were televised, some were not. There was innumerable pictures of solidarity. Prior to our conversation, had you ever heard of Stephen Lawrence?
No.
And there's something about this that I don't want us to actually trade trauma. Have you heard of him? Have you heard of her? It's not a game.
Right.
These are people's children. These are people's parents. But there is something about us responding in a wave of solidarity that is not reciprocated.
Right.
And I think that nobody wants their children or a relative to be screened, to have their deaths immortalized and accessible on YouTube, and then have comments about whether or not they were complicit in their own death. But there is something about the way in which, even in a perverted parallel, that we're still inferior to the United States in terms of the reciprocal relationship that we have about a shared identity. And we're galvanized by reggae, we're galvanized by rap because it narrates the underclass that we live in from not being fully represented through cinematic, primarily commoditized cinematic endeavor to music. And I just think, and I wonder where you feel music now goes. I know you mentioned that there will be an anthem, that, that hunger, that savagery that you mentioned will come out in form.
Yes. There's someone writing it right now.
And how do you feel about that coming out when the measure is streaming or the measure is how many hits, as opposed to, I saw Dougie Fresh walk past because we knew how to measure who that was.
Right.
Where do you think it comes musically to address all of this? Or is it possible to?
It's the ancient concept of the Messiah, where people today we're given some Superman concept that the Messiah comes out of the sky and heals the sick with the touch of a hand and this kind of thing. Fantasy.
Does celebrity do that as well?
Same thing. Same thing.
I'm getting a sign. Oh gosh.
Same thing. I'll make this short then. In order to inspire people with your music, you have to be born for that. It's not something you learn. It's not something someone gives you. You're born with it. Because you have to take it to death. You cannot be afraid of being harmed in this life. You can't be afraid of being harmed. And not just harmed bodily or your life, but you lose your job, your career's at stake, family, friends, etc. You can have no attachments at all. Your only attachment is to the Most High God. That's it, if you're even there. That's your attachment.
You can't have a really fit girlfriend or boyfriend? You
No.
can't bring them along too?
Nothing.
Okay.
I'm privileged. I'm privileged. I have a family that matches my work. That's a privilege. And I recognize that as a privilege. It's not the norm, though. It's not the norm to have a wife like mine. It's not the norm. I look at other men that may be even smarter than me in many ways, read more, been more places, may even have more accolades and more access to things that could really help us. But their wives are crazy.
Leave it there. You said crazy about women twice. Okay.
I'm cutting it off.
Thank you.